I'm in a lab in 2008. It's 11:47 p.m. and I'm standing over a PET scan of a 63-year-old woman named Margaret. Her cognitive tests? Perfect. Memory recall? Flawless. But the imaging told a different story. I saw something we used to call ghosting. Her neural pathways were still firing, but the connections between them, the synapses, they were thinning. Fading. Like someone had turned down the dimmer switch on a chandelier. And here's what haunted me. Margaret didn't know. She wouldn't know for another decade, but I knew, and that's the thing they don't tell you when you turn 60. When you walk into your doctor's office and say, "I feel like I'm slowing down," and they pat your hand and say, "Well, you're getting older." They're not lying to you, but they're not telling you the whole truth either. Because what's happening in your brain right now, today, this moment, it started 10 years ago, and if you don't catch it, if you don't intervene, you'll wake up one morning and realize you've lost something you can never get back. My name is Stephen Andrews. I've spent 32 years in longevity research, clinical data analysis, watching the 60-plus community get buried under what I call fast medicine culture. Pills for symptoms, patches for problems. But no one is talking about the biological bottleneck, the mechanism that causes your brain to dim its own lights. Now, before we go further, let me be clear. I am a career researcher, not your doctor. My goal here is to empower you with data, with information that's been sitting in clinical journals for decades, so that you can have a better, more informed conversation with your physician. Never, and I mean never, change your protocol, start a supplement, or adjust your medication without professional consultation. This is about knowledge, not prescription. Does that make sense? Good, because what I'm about to show you, what we're going to walk through together, it's not in the brochures. It's not in the TV ads. It's buried in the research, and I'm tired of watching people suffer because no one bothered to translate the science. So here's the promise. By the end of this, you'll know the 3 early warning signs that appear a full decade before memory loss becomes obvious. And you'll understand the biological bottleneck that's causing it. Let's start with the root. The brain is not a computer. It's a living, breathing, self-cleaning biological system. And the 2 mechanisms that matter most, the 2 systems that determine whether you stay sharp or fade into fog, are synaptic plasticity and glymphatic clearance. Let me explain this the way I wish someone had explained it to me 30 years ago. Imagine your brain is a high-end restaurant kitchen, Michelin star level. The chefs are your neurons. The recipes? Those are your memories, your thoughts, your ability to solve problems. But here's the thing. Every night, after service, there's a cleaning crew. They come in, they scrub the counters, they take out the trash, they reset everything so the kitchen is spotless and ready for the next day. That cleaning crew? That's your glymphatic system. It activates during deep sleep. It flushes out metabolic waste, beta-amyloid proteins, tau tangles, all the biochemical garbage that accumulates when your brain is working hard. But here's where it gets ugly. Around age 50, for reasons we're still mapping, that cleaning crew starts to slow down. They don't show up on time, they leave trash in the corners, and over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, the kitchen starts to get filthy. The chefs, your neurons, they're still trying to cook, but they're working in a toxic environment, and that's when the synapses, the connections between neurons, they start to weaken, they atrophy, they die. This is synaptic plasticity breaking down. It's not Alzheimer's, not yet. It's the precursor, the warning shot. And here's the part that makes me angry. The standard of care, the protocols most doctors are trained on, they're still based on research from the 1980s and 90s. Back then, we thought cognitive decline was inevitable. Just part of aging, so the goal was to manage it, slow it down, make it comfortable. But in the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2025, we've had breakthroughs that completely rewrite the script. We now know that glymphatic clearance can be restored, synaptic plasticity can be enhanced. The brain, even at 60, 70, 80 years old, it can rebuild. But the industry doesn't want you to know that, because optimizing biology doesn't sell as many prescriptions as managing decline. Now, why does this matter? Because if you can catch the early signs, If you can intervene before the trash piles up, before the synapses start dying, you can keep your mind sharp for decades longer than your parents did. So let's talk about those signs. Sign number 1. Loss of microscent sensitivity. This is the one no one talks about, but it's the canary in the coal mine. Your sense of smell is controlled by the olfactory bulb, a small structure at the front of your brain that connects directly to your hippocampus, the memory center. And here's what we found in the labs back in the 90s. The olfactory bulb is one of the first regions to show atrophy, shrinkage, when the glymphatic system starts failing. You don't lose your sense of smell completely, not at first, but you stop noticing subtle scents. Fresh coffee doesn't hit you the same way. You can't smell rain on pavement. Your partner's cologne, the one you've loved for 30 years, it just fades into the background. Most people don't even realize it's happening. They blame it on allergies, on age, on dry air. But if you're over 60 and you've noticed this, if you've thought to yourself, things just don't smell as strong anymore, that's your brain sending you a message. The cleaning crew is falling behind. Sign number 2, step-down spatial calculation errors. This is a technical term for something very simple. You start misjudging distances. You reach for a glass of water and your hand lands 2 inches to the left. You walk down a flight of stairs and you hesitate, just for a second, because your brain isn't sure where the next step is. This is a parietal lobe glitch. The parietal lobe is responsible for spatial awareness, for mapping your body in 3-dimensional space. And when the synapses in that region start to thin, when the metabolic waste starts to accumulate, the calculations get sloppy. Again, this doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle. It's a hesitation, a recalibration, a moment where you think, that's weird. But over 10 years, it compounds. And by the time you're 70, you're the person who can't parallel park anymore, who bumps into door frames, who feels unsteady on their feet. And everyone, including your doctor, says, well, your balance is just off, it happens. But it's not balance, it's your brain. Sign number 3. The tired but wired 3:01 a.m. sleep pattern. This is the most insidious one, because it feels like insomnia. It feels like stress. You go to bed exhausted, you fall asleep quickly. But then, like clockwork, you wake up at 2, 4, 3, 4 in the morning, and your mind is racing. You're tired, but you're wired. Here's what's really happening. Your glymphatic system is stalling. Remember, glymphatic clearance happens during deep sleep, specifically during the slow-wave sleep cycles. But when the system is compromised, when the waste isn't being flushed efficiently, your brain starts to panic. It sends stress signals. It floods you with cortisol. It wakes you up because, on a biological level, it's suffocating. And the cruel irony? The less you sleep, the less the glymphatic system can clean. So you get trapped in a vicious cycle. You're exhausted, but your brain won't let you rest. Does that sound familiar? So now you know the signs. Now you know what's happening under the hood. But here's the question, what do we do about it? And this is where the research gets exciting, because we have a protocol. A 3-phase system that's backed by clinical data that's been tested in labs from UCLA to Johns Hopkins. And that's showing results in patients over 60. Again, this is not medical advice. This is information. You take this to your doctor. You show them the research. And you ask, does this make sense for me? Clear? Good. Phase 1, the environmental shift, or what I call the blue light flood. Here's what we know. The glymphatic system is controlled by your circadian rhythm. When your internal clock is aligned with natural light cycles, the cleaning crew shows up on time. But when you're bathed in blue light, artificial light from screens, from LED bulbs, from TVs, until 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., your brain thinks it's noon. And the cleaning crew doesn't show up. So the first intervention, the simplest one, is this. Get 20 minutes of direct sunlight in your eyes within 1 hour of waking up. Not through a window, not with sunglasses. Direct sunlight. This resets your circadian clock. It tells your brain, this is morning, this is when we start the cycle. And then after sunset, you cut blue light exposure by 80%. Use blue light blocking glasses, dim your screens. Install red light bulbs in your bedroom. This is not hippie nonsense. This is chronobiology, and it works. Phase 2, biological catalysts. Now we get into the supplements, the compounds that have been studied in clinical trials and shown to enhance synaptic plasticity and support glymphatic clearance. I'm going to name 3, and for each one I'm going to tell you what the research says. First, omega-3 index. This is the percentage of omega-3 fatty acids in your red blood cell membranes. The target, based on cardiovascular and neurological research, is 8% or higher. Most people over 60, they're at 4% or lower. Omega-3s, specifically EPA and DHA, they're the building blocks of synaptic membranes. When you're deficient, the synapses become brittle. They break. The dose that shows up in the literature, 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA per day. But don't just buy fish oil off the shelf. Get your omega-3 index tested. Know your number. And work with your doctor to bring it up. Second, NAD+ precursors. NAD+ is a coenzyme that powers cellular energy production. And as you age, your NAD+ levels drop by 50% or more. The 2 precursors that have the most clinical data are NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, and NR, nicotinamide riboside. The research, particularly out of Washington University and Harvard, suggests that 250 to 500 milligrams per day can restore NAD+ levels and improve mitochondrial function in the brain. This is not a magic pill, but it's a lever. And it's one we didn't have 20 years ago. Third, urolithin A. This is a metabolite produced by gut bacteria when they break down polyphenols from foods like pomegranates and walnuts. The problem? Only about 30% of people have the right gut bacteria to produce it naturally. But in 2023, a Swiss company started producing it synthetically. And the early trials are showing that 500 milligrams per day improves mitochondrial autophagy, the process by which your cells clear out damaged components. It's early. But it's promising. And again, you take this information to your doctor. You ask, is this relevant for me? Phase 3, the longevity rule, or what I call the 14-hour metabolic window. This is the simplest intervention and the most powerful. Here's the concept. Every time you eat, your body shifts into fed mode. Insulin rises, digestion activates, and the glymphatic system slows down. But when you're fasting, when your body is in fasted mode, the glymphatic system kicks into high gear. So the protocol is this. Compress your eating into a 10-hour window and fast for 14 hours. For most people, this means eating between 8 g.m. and 6 g.m., or 10 g.m. and 8 g.m. No snacks, no late-night eating. Just a clean, consistent metabolic rhythm. The research, published in journals like Cell Metabolism and Nature, shows that this pattern enhances glymphatic clearance by up to 40%, and it costs nothing. Check with your doctor, especially if you're on medication. But this is one of the most underutilized tools we have. Now here's the part that's going to make some people uncomfortable, because there's a food, a so-called health food, that's actively making this problem worse. And it's hiding in plain sight. I'm talking about liquid fructose, fruit juices, fortified smoothies. Those little bottles of cold-pressed juice that cost $12 at Whole Foods. Here's what we know from the research. Liquid fructose, when consumed in high concentrations without the fiber matrix of whole fruit, it causes brain insulin resistance. Your brain cells become less responsive to insulin, and when that happens, they can't take in glucose efficiently. They starve. They atrophy. And the worst part? The marketing tells you it's healthy. All natural, no added sugar. But fructose is fructose, and your brain doesn't care if it came from an organic apple or a bottle. So if you're drinking juice, if you're blending smoothies with 4 bananas and a cup of mango, if you're using agave syrup because it's low glycemic, you're flooding your brain with liquid fructose, and you're accelerating the very decline you're trying to prevent. Stop it. Eat whole fruit. Chew it. Let your gut process the fiber. But stop drinking your calories. Let me paint you a picture. It's 30 days from now. You wake up at 6:30 a.m. naturally without an alarm. You feel rested, clear-headed. You make your coffee, and when you open the bag, you smell it. Really smell it. That rich, bitter, almost chocolatey aroma that you forgot you used to love. You go for a walk. And as you step off the curb, your body knows exactly where the ground is. No hesitation, no second guessing. You work through the morning, and your thoughts are sharp. You remember names, you solve problems, you feel like yourself again. And that night, you sleep, deeply, all the way through. No 3 a.m. panic, no racing mind, just rest. That's not a fantasy. That's what happens when you support your brain's natural cleaning systems. When you stop fighting biology and start working with it. But here's the thing. Fixing your brain is only half the battle. Because if your vascular system is failing, if your arteries are clogged, if your blood pressure is spiking, your brain can't get the oxygen and nutrients it needs. You can have the cleanest glymphatic system in the world, but if the delivery trucks can't get through the streets, it doesn't matter. And I've spent the last 30 years researching exactly that. The cardiovascular brain connection, the arterial health protocols that no one talks about. You need to see that research. You need to understand how the systems connect. It's all here, right here in the next video. Don't wait. Because the longer you wait, the harder it gets. One more thing. I've taken the 32 years of data from today's talk, the studies, the protocols, the dosing schedules, the clinical references, and I've organized it all into what I call a longevity cheat sheet. It's a PDF. It's free. And it's everything you need to take this conversation to your doctor. Would you like me to share the link in the comments? Let me know. And thank you for trusting me with your time, with your attention, with your health. I don't take that lightly. Stay sharp.